A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Hello and welcome back to Oversharing. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Dr. Naomi Bernstein.
And a little breaking the fourth wall. We're recording some episodes in advance since I plan to be out for a little bit of a maternity leave. So might be in a different space right now than when you're hearing this episode. But I thought it'd be an interesting conversation because we've gotten so many emails about like mother-in-laws and childcare and issues around that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd walk the listeners through. It's not really a dilemma. It's more just like a, because we usually hear about these things and there's like when there's a dilemma.
Right. This is the preemptive conversation.
So maybe as a therapist, you could help me navigate some important things to consider before figuring out childcare as it relates to in-laws and things like that.
Totally. All right. So what's the situation?
So I have a baby nurse for 2 to 3 months. I haven't fully figured out like the extent of the time, but at least 2 months. So that'll be really helpful. And I have, a unique situation where I'm going to have one baby for hopefully a few weeks and then 2 babies.
Right.
And I don't have any children currently, so I have no idea really.
No, but nobody knows. You don't know what you need until you're in it. So,
or what it's going to be like, or how, I mean, again, even I have an idea of what it's like to have one. I don't really even have an idea of what it's like to have 2 at the same time at that age. Most people, I guess, don't. But I'm very grateful, one, to be able to have a baby nurse, and 2, my mother-in-law really wants to be like involved, and she's retired. So is my father-in-law, and they kind of like tag team a lot of stuff too. Yeah, together. And they're really excited to be like involved because they only have Mike has one brother, and so they have one other granddaughter, but she lives across the country in like the San Francisco area. I think there's like a little bit of a sadness around like not being able to be fully in her life because they don't get to see her every day. So they'll see her at the holidays, and it's not like a quick flight either. It's like a 5.5, 6 hour flight.
Right.
They're really excited. And I'm like, I'm like, help sounds great. Like And so we were saying to them yesterday as we were talking about it, like, which is almost like a weird conversation. It's almost like when you're talking to someone about paying for a wedding and you're like, well, what would you like to give, if anything? Doesn't have to be, but like help is welcome, but not expected, but not necessary. Want you to be comfortable, but also like, because you don't really, before you even talk about that, you really don't know.
No, it could be, help could mean like, I'll come over and we'll do it all together, or help could mean I'll be full-time nanny for 5 days a week.
And you don't want to phrase anything like, oh, this is what I'm expecting, or like even just asking sounds like, someone could be like, well, I was planning to just come over and chill when you're there and not do any childcare at all, which would be fine. I think that's like also, I could see myself being that age and being like, I did that. I'm good. I'm here to like bring toys and do the fun stuff. So, but that's not what they were feeling like. I think they do really want to help, and they are retired. And so we were kind of like, well, we can afford childcare, but like, if you would like to help, like we would love that too. And like, let us know what you want to do.
And did they come back, or you're still in that process of they're going to come back?
Well, this is our original conversation with them. This was like last night. And his mom was like, I'll come like the whole time, like whatever. And we were like, oh, wait, just think about it.
Think about
for
it
a second. They also live, they live like 50 minutes away. So it's not like around the corner. It's not, a 50-minute drive. It's not like across the country, but it's not.
No, if that's every day, it's 50 minutes there, 50 minutes back.
And I mean, we have like a guest room, but like, I'm kind of like, I would just, if they didn't exist, I would just assume we would have a nanny.
Right.
And it's a tough conversation because I'm like, I'd rather you like undercommit than overcommit, because when you overcommit, then if you're feeling overwhelmed, then I feel like there's a tension And then there's also like maybe like a resentment if they stop, which I don't think she would do that. I don't think she would just like cancel or not show up if she was having a hard time. But I'm also kind of like, you haven't done this in 36 years. That's Mike's age.
And she's never done 2 babies at one time.
But she's like, she was a homemaker, like, and she raised, I'm sure she has a pretty good sense of what that was like or what to do. And she did it all pretty much on her own.
Yeah.
But it's like a weird thing because it's kind of like, and I can understand we've gotten some emails about this too, where sometimes you're like, it's nice to have like a transactional relationship.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I pay you and you come. And if I don't like the way you're doing it, then I don't pay you anymore and I find someone else. So it's just so hard because I don't know. I mean, I don't know what my own parenting style is. I don't know if she's going to be
totally.
She's very respectful of boundaries.
Awesome. Yeah, it does sound like you guys always have a good, respectful relationship. She's not overbearing. She's not showing up at your house unannounced I think the best way to handle it is to have, and I think it's also going to help your relationship with her, is to have a conversation that's like so excited for you to help. Neither one of us have any idea what this is going to feel like when we're actually doing it. So the most important thing is that we're just communicating along the way. So you're not like, that might help with a culture of like, she's not going to wait until she's overwhelmed and is like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I can't do this anymore. Like I'm out, and not giving you a bunch of notice, like to create a, and I say this even like in therapy, right? Like in some of my first sessions that I have with people, I'll be like, hey, if something that we're doing doesn't feel like it's working for you, if there's something that I ever say that like is off-putting to you or is upsetting to you, or you feel like we're not making progress, or it feels like it's getting like whatever it is, like I'll kind of give a bunch of things and be like, please, let's talk about it, because that's kind of part of this. So I think if you can come at it with like, like, let's just share along the way. And like, I'm not going to be offended if you decide that this is too much for you. And even in therapy, I'll say, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you say somehow this isn't feeling right for you. So I think if you can say something like that, like, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you do at some point feel like, okay, maybe you start off, say you want to do 3 days a week and you actually only want to do once a week, or maybe you want to do it, but you want to have like a mother's helper in the house with you to help you, or whatever it is. Like, let's just keep the lines of communication open, because neither one of us really know what this is going to feel like, I think is a great way to start it off. And then you're not, I think these things get bad
when people are not sharing,
holding it in. Oh my, whatever, on both ends, not sharing. And then they're like, you got to go, or like, I got to go.
Where you're like, I don't like the way I've been, I don't like the way you do that. And I've been thinking about it, but I feel weird saying something. And then it kind of comes out in some other.
Yeah, like a relationship where you're like thinking about breaking up for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you break up and they're like, where did this come from?
Right. Yeah. So that's a great tip. I think overly communicate.
Especially with someone like her, who I think is just she's not overbearing. She's not going to get like emotional, like be nitpicking you, or I think it's almost one of these situations where when you tell someone who's like reserved communicator to over communicate, they probably land somewhere in the middle.
Right. Yeah. I don't think she'll be like complaining to me all the time if I say that. That's a great point. She'll probably maybe say like one more thing than she would have said otherwise, which was probably very little. That's a great idea. Maybe I'll do that. And I have said, like, you can always add or take away with notice.
Right.
With notice. That's the other. That's because like the tough thing, and we've seen these emails, is like for someone to kind of like leave you hanging if you're relying on someone for that. But I also know that I'm not owed anything, so it's kind of like, I guess like the only thing I think you're owed in this situation is like advance notice if the plan is changing.
Yes.
I think that's like all that's owed in a situation where you're getting free childcare.
100%. And the best way to do that is for her to just honestly communicate along the way. Like if was with the two of them alone and you were working and they were both crying and whatever the thing, she couldn't handle it, for her to be like, yeah, today was tough. like this is what happened. And, maybe I'll get the hang of it, or like maybe it'll get easier in the next few days as I kind of settle into a routine. But like today was challenging. That's like a little bit of an initial, like I'm just sharing how this is feeling.
That's a good preliminary conversation too, to like this might be a little much. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
If she feels that way. And then you can kind of fit whatever help you need in with what
she's comfortable with. Yeah.
If she's kind of like, I really do still want to be here, but maybe you can like get a mother's helper or something, like an extra set of hands when I'm here, versus like, if she waited too long, she would say she couldn't handle it. And then you'd be like, fine, don't come at all. And she's like, then she's sad because she really wants to come, but maybe she just
doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. And I think even just talking through multiple scenarios of ways it could go, I think gives someone permission to feel the way that they, if we're to where if they have that feeling, they feel like they can share it because you've already voiced that it's a possibility.
Yes. That's why I do that in the initial sessions. I'll say like, if this feels like it's getting repetitive, if it feels like we're stuck, if you feel like there's something I said that rubbed you the wrong way, like I give these examples to kind of be like, I've heard it all before. Like, it's not a problem.
It's not something that I'm going to be offended or shocked by.
Yes. So, but that's awesome. I think it's always nice when you can leave your kids with someone that they're going to have this lifelong bond with.
And I think that's why they're doing it.
Although interestingly enough, like we had a babysitter that was our babysitter that was not a family member when we were young, Josephina, and she's still in our lives, which is really cool. Like, I think sometimes there's a feeling of like, if you hire help that they're like not family, but there are moments. And like in our situation, there was like, when I first saw her, this was actually at your dad's memorial. When I first saw her, I hugged her so hard. Like it was really like seeing a like I hadn't seen her in so long. And like all those same like caretakey feelings, even though I'm like towering over her now, like so much, she was like my caretaker when I was little. So it's
a special,
either way you go, if you go nanny, if you go mother-in-law, grandma, you can have those amazing bonds either way. But it is really nice that she's offering. So I'm glad that.
Yeah. And I'll give updates as long as it's not weird.
Yeah.
You're back.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for talking that through with me. Should we get into our emails and voicemails for the day? All right, great. We have a voicemail today. If you have a voicemail, you can leave us one at 646-363-6294. If you want to subscribe to this show, you get 2 bonus episodes a month. You get all the episodes ad-free and a day early, which is a great way to get involved with the show. We love our subscription bonus episodes, which come out twice a month. Or you can join one of Dr. Naomi's therapy groups. How do they do that?
Yes, come find me. Come find our community at naomibernstein.com. You get your once weekly therapy group, and then you get access to me. I always tell all the members in all my groups, email me. I'm here for you guys. So yeah, you get to be part of the community, but you also get that kind of support in between sessions if you need it. So it's a really great space. I try not to miss any. Even through the holidays, I really try to keep those groups consistent as much as possible every single week, except for obviously the ones that land on Christmas Day. But it's a really nice, consistent space to know that you're going to receive support, be able to support others. And have that access to, to me as a support in between sessions. So naomibernstein.com, come find us.
All right, let's do a Shed My Shame. Someone wrote in. I think this is a really good one. I think, a lot of the ones we get are a little bit like, they're nice and they're legitimate and they're all great. But sometimes like the last one I think was like, I didn't recycle correctly.
Right.
So this one's a little deeper, a very vulnerable email. So I want to thank the email in advance for writing in, because this is kind of like a more serious one. And it's hard to, write that in. That's kind of like, I guess, the point of
Totally.
Shed My Shame. So I'll read it and then we'll dive in. Hey, ladies, I have recently come across news that happened in the past regarding parenting, and I cannot stop replaying the issue and feeling deep shame. I don't know if you all could help, but I thought I'd write in and see what you all think. I've been a single parent since divorcing when I was 27, having 60-40 parenting with a 2-year-old boy at that time. I'm now 36, happily married. My son is 10 and our daughter is 2. That said, I know I was a terrible parent when I was in my late 20s and early 30s. I was mentally unstable, going through a divorce that led me to move across the country multiple times. That being said, I've really matured in my last 4 years, emotionally, financially, physically. I've also never raised children or around them growing up. And with my son, when it was just us until 4 years ago, I was kind of living by the grip of my seat. We also have lived between a 5 and 32-hour car ride to our nearest family at the time. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is I know I'm doing way better, and I know I wasn't a great parent to my son in his early years, and I have a lot of regret and sadness when I think about those times. I worry I've ruined his life sometimes, although he really does live his best life now. Anyway, my husband told me the other day when we were first dating that my son was acting like a child and having a complete meltdown in the parking lot, leaving this restaurant and brewery one day. My husband said, "I remember you slapped him." I said, "I don't remember this." He said, "I slapped him across the face." And to be honest, I do remember slapping him across the face twice in his life. And I feel so bad about that. Like I would never do that, but obviously I did. I'm embarrassed for my behavior and for embarrassing my son. I get his dad, I think, probably still spanks him and threatens that, but that's never been me. I'm not even a violent person. I feel terrible. I let it get to that level. How do I shed my shame and move on from this? I often feel guilty that my daughter is being raised in such a stable, calm environment when my son kind of had it bad with instability. I know he has stability now, but I cannot seem to forgive myself for what I did and how I could have done better. He's an awesome, sweet kid and always has been. I just feel bad. Any suggestions would be helpful. Also, these feelings really sink in when he's with his dad. We do a 50-50 custody thing now, and when I can't communicate with him. Thanks, a sad, bad mom, Betch.
Thank you so much for writing in. I want to validate, like, the situation you were in sounds very overwhelming. If you weren't emotionally stable yourself, going through a divorce, single parenting is really, really, really challenging. And yeah, I think you lost your shit and it happens. The hard part is kind of, which I know intellectually it sounds like she's doing, is separating herself now from herself then. You know, when you go through a transformation like that and learn how to regulate your emotions, it's really like you're a different person.
Yeah.
You look in the mirror, you see the same thing, but it is kind of crazy. Almost like I talk to patients about this a lot. Existentially, you are the same person, but nothing about you is really the same. Like you are the same person you were when you were 10, but like you're not at all.
Yeah,
like,
you're very different.
Even if we take like probably even like on a cellular level, like most of your cells have probably turned over and like changed. They just all kind of appear the same way. You're literally not the same person, but we hold on to so much of that ego identity that makes like, who is Naomi? Who is Jordana? Like, I am this person, and we hold on to an identity. So it is very hard, I think, for people to release guilt from things that they've done. I'll talk to patients that are in their 40s that still feel guilty about like kissing their friend's boyfriend when they were 17.
Yeah, because that's what you're left with is like the memories of like things that you've done.
It's really hard to move past it and and to admit it. So I'm glad that you're coming to us with it. I can definitely think of things that I did in earlier stages of my life that I'm like, who was that?
Or like that's so far from anything that you would do as your current self. But I actually think even the fact that she like is thinking about this and regretting it, like there are many adults who kind of just almost like go through life and like double down on past behavior that's shameful instead of doing what she's doing, which is painful, which is having to look back at it and analyze it and say like, this wasn't right. I regret that version of myself. I'm going to actively try to be like a very different version of myself. Many people, I think, maybe many people I know, I think look back on those situations and they try to justify it, or they make excuses, or they don't feel that. And, she could still be acting like the mother she was 8 years ago.
Totally. And then blaming it on her ex, or it's your fault in some way that I was a single mother because you didn't do this, that, or the other. And that's why I couldn't regulate my emotions. And that's why. You're right. I would first start off by feeling proud of yourself for acknowledging it. And the other piece is like, your son's 10. I think there might be something to like having a conversation with your son about it. Like, I think that's kind of the next stage of remorse and kind of shedding your shame around it, is maybe talking with your son and saying, hey, do you remember this? Because one of the things I think that's hardest when it comes to any type of child abuse is when the parent denies that it happened.
Or doesn't want to talk about it. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not even just the fact that it happened. It's the fact that like, now I'm living in this twisted reality where you're like denying this thing that happened to me. And that I think is often even worse than the thing that originally happened. It might be helpful. Maybe you want to do it in a therapy session. I don't know if your son's been to therapy, but I'm sure it was a hard time of life for him, seeing you upset and working so hard, parents divorce, all that. So maybe it's never too late for him to go back and see if there's anything left there that he needs to talk about. Maybe the two of you can do it with a therapist, or you can just on your own, if he's 10 years old, depending on his, cognitive capacity and what you think he can handle, to be able to say, hey, I want you to know, like, I remember this thing, and this was kind of in language that he can understand, but at 10, he probably can. I remember these few times, and maybe it's not, that was the time it got physical, but I'm sure there were other times when you probably just were overwhelmed or lost your temper or screamed or, other things like to revisit it with him and say, that wasn't okay that I did that to you. And if you remember it, like, I want you to know that I know that happened and that I'm sorry. And I'll never do that to you again.
Yeah. And that could be helpful for both of them, I think, to like work through it. Cause it is one of those things where I feel like you need to work through it to get over it. You can't like just pretend it didn't happen and act differently, because it doesn't really like suck out the poison of it.
And I think he might just be like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. No problem. Or if he doesn't remember, he doesn't remember. If he does, he might be like, yeah, it was no big deal. Like, I barely remember that. But the seed is planted for him that his experience is being validated. So whether he ends up leaning in and wanting to talk about it, or he ends up just being like, whatever, mom, it's fine. I think it's powerful that he knows that you are acknowledging it and you're apologizing for it, and that it's not going to happen again. And also that it's not okay, because he's probably internalizing this as like, oh, okay, guys, that's just
what parents do.
Yeah. Especially if his dad is spanking him or whatever's happening there.
Right. And that's probably why she gets like more upset about it when she thinks of him with his dad, both because maybe that's more of his dad's parenting style, and also that he probably reminds her of that like time.
And when he has to be alone with the dad, it's probably like, oh, he's being alone in some ways with that like version of me that I don't want to be anymore. So I could see why that's hard, but I do think that, if he's capable, 10-year-old, there's a wide variety in 10-year-old, kind of maturity levels. So depending on his maturity level, I think at some point you can address it with him and talk to him about what goes on at his dad's house, not in like a judgmental, your dad's the worst kind of way, but just in like, I'm here if you want to talk about it, or if you're feeling uncomfortable. And I remember that like, this is something that I've done to you in the past, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And I want to be able to talk to you differently and handle things differently. So yeah, I'm really glad you wrote in. I know it's hard too. Now you have another child, and she kind of gets the best version of you.
Not that it's a good thing, but I think like, going through some stuff does often build a little resilience. So maybe that'll be helpful for him some, especially if it's the kind of thing where like he's not currently under chronic stress and you're showing that you're a supportive mom that's always there for him now, and you've really changed. I think that like there's ways that not that it's a good thing, but it's a little adversity, which
Yes.
somewhat important.
Some of the best parenting lessons don't come from being a perfect parent. They come from modeling to your kids, like, I can make mistakes and here's how I handle them. I can fall down and here's how I get back up. Like, even I've seen some of the most amazing parents that are like recovering addicts that are, they're great parents because they're constantly doing the work and showing their kids that like being a good person is hard sometimes. Doing the right thing is hard sometimes. Admitting you're wrong is hard sometimes. As a parent, I think it's a great lesson for him to see that you were imperfect, you made mistakes. That way, when he makes mistakes himself, whatever type of mistake that might be, instead of beating himself up or feeling badly about himself, he'll be like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to become a better and different person, just like my mom did.
Good luck. Let us know if you have that conversation.
I would love to hear about that for sure.
All right, let's do an overshare. We've got a voicemail for this one. Let's roll the tape.
Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. I've been listening to your guys' show since the beginning, and I've recently subscribed. So I just listened to the episode the other day where you talk about your father and stepfather's loss recently, and I just want to say, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss, and honestly, listening to it and just how emotional you guys were and how vulnerable you were with your audience, I just want to say thank you for that. I've had this in my notes for a couple months now, and your episode on your grief kind of inspired me to finally call. So I'm calling to get some advice, maybe an intention about a situation I have with my partner. We just moved in together and we have plans to get engaged this year. I love him so much. He's an amazing partner. Flashback to a couple years ago when we first met. On our second date, he shared with me that he had recently lost his mom to her really long battle with cancer. He's never been able to talk about it much until he went to therapy. He had a couple of sessions of EMDR, and the changes were honestly incredible. So I'm really grateful for that. And he can now talk about mom without freezing up or shutting down. But here's the issue. It's me, and my grief. I'm not sure how to talk to him about it because I will never get to meet my mother-in-law. I've never even heard her voice, and I have this strange feeling when she comes up in conversation with my partner and his family members, like I'll literally never understand what it was like to know her. So my grief almost feels a little invalid. I know it's not, but there's this strange like pocket of ambiguous grief and I don't know how to manage it. So like I said, any advice or intention from the two of you would be so much appreciated. Again, thank you for sharing your story with the subscribers. I really appreciated hearing that perspective, and I'm wondering if you guys have anything to add to my situation. Thank you so much for all that you do. Sending love. Thank you.
You can feel so much emotion in this voicemail. I was thinking about, when I listened to this voicemail, I was thinking about a little bit about your situation, because I know Jeff was very close with his dad, and he died before you guys met each other, but I know he's like a very big presence. So I was wondering if you had any like personal feeling of relating to this.
Totally. It's so funny because he literally told me also on our second date, I can like flash back to where we were sitting. And it's like a real connecting moment. And I have like you hear so much. I'm glad, her partner is able to talk about his mom now, but like I've heard so much about his dad. And we've been married for so long that just like years and years of stories. And, Jeff will say that he like he'll make, like, I feel like I could make the jokes that they make, that his dad made, that like it's a weird feeling. Like you feel like you're kind of in it, but you're not. Like you know this person, but you've never met them, but like you know them through your partner. At least this is how I feel. And there are definitely moments where, from the way they describe him, like I kind of visualize my relationship with him. Like what it would be like what my relationship with his dad would be like if he were alive. And of course, like it's a fantasy, it's a visualization, but I just can almost feel his love. It's like a weird feeling from someone that you've never met. Like, I can almost feel like we would love each other, because just the way that he's described, and like I'm kind of not in it, like I'm not like in the intensity of the dynamic of the relationship. Like I'm kind of outside, but short.
There's no, it's not it's like an uncomplicated. Right.
Yeah. Especially I think somehow, at least for me, I'm just speaking of mine, that I know hers is like a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law thing. And maybe she had a vision at some point of like what that relationship might feel like. But even like a father-in-law, daughter-in-law, it's like probably one of the least complicated like family relationships in a lot of ways. It's like, it's not mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. It's like that one we know is very complicated and loaded. So I've just envisioned, and I do feel like there is a sense of loss there. I can really validate it. And we had this very similar experience, like knowing it very early on and going through moments of grief with him about it, and really wishing that like I could know him, and feeling that loss. I think now that he's better, not better, I mean, grief is a forever process, but like now that he's able to talk about it more, I do wonder if you can share some of this with him in whatever way you're feeling it. And maybe you could start to like watch a video if he's up for it, or kind of feel like you could get to know him, even if it's maybe just looking through photos, or kind of leaning into that together. I think the fact that he wasn't able to talk about her probably made her feel really distant. And now that he's gone through EMDR and he can tolerate talking about her a little bit more, maybe she can feel like, at least to the extent maybe that I do, where you feel like you kind of know this person because you're looking at pictures all the time and you're talking about them. And I think he might feel closer to you knowing that you feel this way.
Right. Is there part of it? And I mean, you could say, is there a part of it that's like, feels a little like left out because you don't, almost like they're talking about an experience, when you're with people who went to high school together and you didn't go there, and they're talking about that or something like that. Is there like a part of it a little bit?
Yeah, I could see that. I think they're sharing these memories together, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I think for her, who's earlier on in her relationship, I think there is some hope, if that is something you're feeling like left out. After time, you will feel a little bit more part of it through your husband, who's, or your fiance, who's going to be sharing more stories now that he's so close to it. I think it sounds like it's pretty recent, that I think you can feel pulled in a different way after a while. But yeah, there is part of that feeling. It's such a big part of them that she's never going to be able to relate to or connect with. Yeah.
Especially because it's so recent. So it's like the whole time up until, it's just as it just happened, almost like on their second date. So there does feel like I missed this big part of you up until like I met you. Almost like it might be easier if it was 10 years ago and he's had way more experiences, but it's just like it's like very black and white in that way. Almost.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's an interesting relationship dynamic when you meet someone like around the time that they're going through a loss. It's definitely unique. It changes things. It's your journey, and it's not neither good nor bad, but I do think it changes the dynamic. It's a big deal, and you're going through it with them, and he's probably not the same exact person he was before he lost his mom, or the person that he will be 10 years from now.
I wonder if there's like a fear in telling him that she feels this way, or she feels like strongly about it, that she's co-opting the pain or taking away.
Like you're upset because you never got to meet my mom. Like
that would go through my head, I think, if I were going to share that. And she seems like pretty emotional about it. So like, I could see having that fear of like, am I entitled to even feel anything about this? Is that like selfish almost?
I totally get it. And I would just, you have to, it's how you're feeling, right? So I think if he doesn't like it, that's, if he feels like I can't handle your emotions around this. And yeah, there is a risk to that. Like if this is still kind of fresh for him and you come in and you're really emotional and looking to be soothed by him, there might be a part of him that, I don't know, that might feel like this is too much. I can't handle your emotion around this. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that if that's how he feels, it also doesn't mean that your feelings are invalid or they're wrong or selfish or anything like that. It just means he's not in a place to hear it. But I'm pretty sure at some point, if you guys are planning a life together.
And he's been to therapy around it and he's done all the processing on his own, I think he probably, I agree with you, would feel happy that you want to feel so connected to this person that meant so much to him. I think that's like really nice.
I think there might be part of this too that's almost like secondhand grief, that like she wants to feel it with him and this is the way that she's experiencing it, as in like I can't be in it with you, but I can grieve the loss of the person that I never got to meet.
And I think this probably bring you closer. And if it's something you're feeling, again, I think as long if whatever you're worried about in saying it, I think if you also share that yes, like gets rid of any feeling of like you not reading the room or understanding. Like you could, when you're bringing it up, you could say like, I didn't say, I haven't said anything because I feel almost like it's not valid, or like whatever her fear is. And then I think I think that would make you closer to someone.
Totally. I agree with kind of saying that, what you just said. And also even like, I don't need you to like do anything about this. Like, I'm not like, I just want to share this with you because it's how I'm feeling, but I don't need you to feel like you have to try to make me feel better, or like, however you respond to this is fine with me. I just want to share it with you because it's how I'm feeling. I don't imagine he's going to take that poorly.
That's great advice.
All right. Well, thank you for writing. That's a really great question. And I think there are others that probably relate. I know that I relate on some level. So yeah.